I want to ask you all a question, and I want you to think about it throughout this video. What is the Honda NT1100, or where does it sit in Honda's lineup of motorcycles? Think about it through this video. And this video is going to be my last video on this 2025 Honda NT1100. If you've been here through this series of videos, you all know this is a loaner from Honda, so big thank you to Honda for letting me get some real raw seat time on this motorcycle to give you guys to be able to deliver that. As I've done 1,036 miles on this, went into the Smoky Mountains through North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. So I got some real raw feedback I want to share with you guys. Y'all know I'm not a spec reader type of reviewer. I like giving those real seat time type of reviews. You can go to Honda's website and read all the specs. You're going to get those raw, real feedback here. And that's where I want to start, is how you're looking at this bike. You're seeing it with these side cases on it here. Now these are an added accessory, but how I rode it was with the cases off. Well, not that way. You can just take them off like this. And this is how I rode this motorcycle. And honestly, in my opinion, I think it looks better without the cases. It definitely looks a little bit more sleek and slender and a little bit more sporty. But if you are more into the touring side of it, these cases are awesome for sure. They lock onto the bike, or you can pop them open. They don't just fall open, but I don't know if you guys can see it in there. They're actually weather sealed, so you're not gonna get any water in there. These bags are also an extra accessory, but they fit perfectly into the cases. They're padded in there, so if you wanna throw some camera gear or a laptop, very nice, versatile cases here. But I wanna show you how I had the bike set up during my ride time. The Nelson Rig tank bag, this is their bigger one here, just simply magnetizes right onto the tank, doesn't budge or move. And then I use their Route 66 bag here, which just sat right on the back there. Then you can attach it to the back rack, and it really gives you the versatility for whatever you need. If you want to put a helmet back here, your wallet, your phone, some camera gear, this really suited the bike perfectly, and I really loved this setup on this motorcycle. Now, the first area we have to start with this motorcycle is the riding position and just riding it, sitting on it, right? And I'm right at 6 feet with an inseam of 32 inches. And as I'm sitting on this bike, you can see I got a little crease in my leg. If I stand up, it's right there. I can dance it around. It's not incredibly top heavy like you're familiar with an Africa Twin or something. It is just so incredibly manageable and very, very comfortable. And one of the things that makes this bike super comfortable is this seat. This is one of the better seats I've used. It's not super plush, but you can see you got some give on it. Now, it does have a slight incline or decline forward right there, a little bit of slope, nothing drastic or bad by any means, but I also like the look of it. You see it says NT back there. Then you got the black and the gray little carbon up here. And the thing that really surprised me about this seat, other than it being incredibly comfortable, is I joined the Facebook group for the NT1100, and a bunch of the owners of this bike, they talked about the comfort seat. So I'm not talking Corbin or Sergeant or Surgeon, whatever like that, just the Honda comfort seat for this. And if they're saying that's better than this, holy smokes, that would be phenomenal, because this is already so good. Now, one other thing I want to talk about real quick on riding position, and we'll move on from that, right? But when you're sitting on the bike right here, you can see my legs are perfectly just placed right in here. I'm not getting cramps or anything, slightly down and pretty much straight down right there. I don't got much back kick or anything. The only thing I noticed is the bars. I'm not saying I'm leaning forward like a sports bike, but I do got a little bit of reach. I kind of would prefer them to be right here. I don't know, that's just me, right? That's how I ride my Africa Twins as well. I like just kind of sitting up, so I'm not leaning forward or anything like that. Personal preference, of course. The other cool thing is you can stand up on this bike perfectly fine. If you want to go do a quick fire road and again, not feel the bike dancing underneath you, you can stand up on it. I do got a little bit lean forward, which is nice because you're getting that weight up front, but still, I would like some bar risers on us. I think it would give it that extra bit of comfort with that upright seating position, but you're not really in a sporty mode, so don't think I'm saying that. It's just something I personally would have preferred being at 6 feet. Now, one of the other biggest things I noticed while riding this bike, which goes right along with the riding position and the comfort, that is the wind blockage on this bike. Number one, you got these fairings up here that swoop in and out, which take off that air off your top of your legs and your knees right there, and definitely some of your hips. But more importantly, these little wind deflectors down below, as I talked about in my first impressions, I was like, oh man, those are super cool. I want to put this on my Africa Twin. Well, believe it or not, down here in the south, you're talking 80, 90 degrees just about every darn day. It's pretty hot. Well, these took pretty much all of the air off my legs. But the cool thing, which I tested out, is you can just take these off with a few bolts right there and then get that air back on your leg. Pretty easy to swap them in and out if you want. But while I was up in the mountains and it was 58 degrees, I really appreciated them because it took that cold air off of my legs. But on a hot day, you might catch yourself wanting to take them off. But my main point is you have a lot of wind blockage on it. So if you plan on banging out some miles and doing that touring, you're gonna be incredibly comfortable. You're not gonna have that fatigue, feeling like you're getting ripped up or beat up from the air while you're banging out those miles. And the same thing goes for the wind blockage up front with the windshield and then these little deflectors over here. The cool thing about these, you may be thinking, I don't know, maybe they're just cosmetic or something, but they honestly take that wind off your hand. So you can kind of look at them as like a hand guard. I mean, I still wish there were some cheap hand guards on here to block some of the water when it's raining, but it takes all of that air off your hands. You're not getting beat up right there. And one thing I had wrong in my first impressions about this bike, when you caught me trying to adjust the windshield when I was riding, one of the comments stated as well is probably the pressure of that air whenever you're riding, pushing against it, making it harder to move. That's exactly what it is. Because you see me sitting right here, I pull it out, I can slide it down, pull it out, I can slide it up, perfectly fine, one hand. But whenever you're riding, you do have that pressure against it right there. It makes it a little bit harder. So now let's move on from comfort and riding position of this bike and talk about power. As you see, this bike is the DCT. And I think a lot of us are pretty familiar with DCT by now. Maybe some refer to as the automatic motorcycles. Some people like to hate on it and call it the scooter of motorcycles, you know what I mean? But let me tell you what, I'm on, I believe, my 4th DCT bike. I had some Rebels, Africa Twins. This one here, I'm very used to DCT. I've used them, I've owned them, and I honestly love them. Push the hate aside, don't listen to that stuff. Most of those people haven't ridden or tried DCT. Now, DCT is a learning curve to get used to for sure, but if you've ridden it on an Africa Twin or an NC750 or anything like that, you're pretty much gonna be right at home right here. You got the 1100 here, you got the Africa Twin engine, so that's gonna be a lot more familiar than say the NC750 or something, but if you've been on a Rebel, the power delivery feels the exact same. You're gonna be used to it. The thing you're really gonna have to learn is some of the settings. Like myself riding this bike through the twisties up in the mountains, I had to keep it in Sport 2 to really hold on to those gears and not pop up into a higher gear. If you have it in just drive, which is what I think a lot of people have when they try these here, when they're just going for a quick test ride, and it'll shift the gears pretty early. Say you're going like 30 or 40 miles per hour and the bike will be in 6th gear and you're kind of chugging along trying to get there, you know? So again, dabble with the settings, tweak with some of the settings in the screen, and then with your drive modes, you got Sport 1, 2, 3, and then drive. So my main point is try DCT, learn DCT before you actually judge DCT, because I absolutely love the combination here. With the 1100 engine and the DCT, it is phenomenal. It's the same as my Africa Twin. My main bike will always have DCT. Now, talking about DCT and the power, as far as your options that you can customize this bike, I don't want to sit here and harp on this too much, as we can be here all day, and plus it's the same as the Africa Twin minus the wheelie control and then your ABS. But you can see you got your tack, you got your speed, gear shift indicator, side stand, you have user modes, your gas, temps. But the cool thing over here, so you can see my 1,036 miles. My average fuel throughout this, miles per gallon, is 50.4. If I switch over, my trip up in the mountains was 877 miles with 51 miles. So we can pretty much say 50 miles per gallon with this bike, which is pretty darn good. Over here, then you got your battery, which you can customize these settings, and then you have your range. But you have a lot of options you can choose in here. You got ride modes, user 1, user 2, tour, urban, and then rain mode, which you can see it adjusts your electronic braking, your power, and then your traction control, which you can turn traction control completely off if you want to go off-road as well. And adjusting any of the stuff in the menu, you can either use a touchscreen or all of these buttons over here. You got them up here, you got your lights, the flash, your favorites button, which I always keep is traction control, your paddle shifters for DCT. And a lot of people get intimidated by this cluster of buttons, which you also have some on the other side for DCT. But once once you start riding them, you get used to them. Like me, I've owned 4 now, so I can be blindfolded and control this stuff. The only thing I wish is that Honda would make these backlit. That would be really nice. And these are your controls on the throttle side of the bike, which you have your start, you have your cruise control, plus and minus as well, which you can turn off cruise control by just kicking the throttle forward or pressing the button or the brake as traditional. You have your park and brake right over here, which I really like this. The Africa Twin, you got to pull the brake on the handle. I really like how they implemented this right here. And then of course you have neutral, which with DCT, you can only go into neutral when you're parked, when you're sitting still. You can't go into neutral standalone, which I wish you could, especially for off-road like on the Africa Twin. But of course, we're more road oriented here. And then you got automatic manual and then your drive modes. And if you want to go into like sport 1, 2, or 3, just hold this down. You press it and then hold it and it will go into each of them. I prefer it in sport 2. Now, a couple other really cool things that come on the NT1100 is you have your 12 volt over here. So if you want to put a little phone charger deal in there, but over here you actually have a USB-A port, which you do have to plug your phone into this if you want to run Apple CarPlay, but you can also charge your phone from that as well. So really nice, cool little features they include on this bike. And you also get the heated grips as standard, which is a nice inclusion on this, as my Africa Twin didn't even come with these standard. Now, one of my favorite things on this motorcycle, when you combine, again, the DCT, the power and everything, is the tires and the wheels, both of them being 17-inch front and back. And I know this can differ for a lot of you. A lot of you probably ride this setup of bike, but you all know me, I ride mainly adventure bikes. All of my bikes have a 19-inch front or a 21-inch front with knobbies on them, right? They're running the Dunlop Sports Max tires on these right here. And I rode this bike through the mountains, through the twisties, the tail of a dragon. It was wet, it was rainy, and these tires performed phenomenal. They were sticky. You could lean the bike, you can pull it out of turns, and it just handled great. It was smooth. They weren't noisy. They performed great in the rain. All of my time on these, I was like, oh my gosh, now I need a bike like this in my garage, you know, because again, everything I have is like 21-inch wheels. But as I compare the NT1100 to the Africa Twin so much, I mean that by saying 80 to 90% of people with an Africa Twin or like a BMW GS or even a Triumph Tiger, any big adventure bike, the majority of them don't do serious off-roading. They might be hitting a fire road here and there, going to a campsite, but honestly, the majority of them just tour with those bikes. And you can look at their tires and tell, okay, you don't do serious off-roading. And that's perfectly fine. But my point is, well, why don't you slap some Dunlop Trail Max Missions on this bike and you can do everything you just did while saving 5 to 10 grand, if not even more, on this bike. Think about that. So after all of my testing and talking points on the NT1100, I want you to revert back to that question I asked in the beginning of the video. Where does this motorcycle fit, or what is it really? And I think it's a misunderstood motorcycle, as I did as well. As in my first impressions of the NT1100, I said it's like the touring Africa Twin. Well, that's pretty much the Africa Twin adventure sport, right? You can't compare this motorcycle to the base Africa Twin, which you can get for around 14 to 15, right? That's a 21-inch front wheel, and it's definitely geared more for off-road. That is the one I currently own. But it is pretty similar to the adventure sport, but you're talking 18 to 20 grand out the door, right? When this bike is 12 grand. So when you compare the money, it's like, wait a second, where's this bike really sitting? And what I came to the conclusion of is the NT1100 is the big brother to the Honda NC750. I owned an NC750 before, and this has what I wanted on the NC750. That cruise control, the heated grips, a little bit bigger engine, that wind blockage. I can really crank out some miles with this motorcycle. And when I came to that conclusion, I was like, holy smokes, that is exactly what the NT1100 is. It is the upgraded NC750. Think about that right there. That's the conclusion I came up with on this motorcycle. And I want to thank Honda for letting me borrow this bike to deliver that to you guys, rather than just doing a test ride or swinging the leg over it. Being able to actually put the time and miles on the bike and deliver you guys real raw feedback, like that's just awesome. And I hope this is just the first of many. I'd like to do the NX500 next. That'll be pretty fun, right? But if you guys like this type of format, please hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing, because again, hopefully we have a lot more bikes to cover. And I hope I can bring those videos to you guys. So again, thank you so much for coming by for this one, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye now.